Age of Empires is once again getting the definitive edition treatment, this time with Age of Empires 3. Last year we got it with Age of Empires 2, and the year prior to that, Age of Empires in 2018. Only one missing now is Age of Mythology, which came out in between Age of Empires 2 and Age of Empires 3. So hopefully next year, if Age of Empires 4 doesn't release by then. Not only updated visuals and a little better optimization, but there are some additions to the definitive edition with 2 additional civilizations, the Incas, the Swedes, now the Art of War scenarios that teaches you how to do different aspects like early booming, attack, and historical battles. Historical battles in particular, they didn't have before at all with Age of Empires 2 like they did with Age of Empires 2, and I think this is something that people missed, including myself, which was more of the stronger aspect along with the campaign portion in Age of Empires 2, kind of focused on a single figure or series of events of a particular time period. You can pick it up on Xbox Game Pass, of course, on PC only. This isn't on console, or otherwise the whole package is just $20. It's an RTS, or real-time strategy game, covering the period of Columbus 1492 up until 1771. This is the time shortly after the American Civil War, so you're going to see different units appropriate to this time period. But the later period especially doesn't quite match with, like, you're not going to see so much with the rifles or the mini ball with the musket. And even though they do have like a Gatling gun, I think that was the Merrimack or the Monitor ironclad ship, it is much more focused on troops with guns lining up, firing in volleys with support of gunpowder cannon and the ships too, ships with sails, with cannons, that type of a thing. Much more combat oriented though, because your colonists can gather resources in a decentralized way. They don't need a gather point. One big addition, though, from Age of Empires 3 that helps separate it from the second game is the home city. Every civilization has their own deck of cards that you can apply different types of cards given a different age. And the farther you get, the more powerful the cards become. For example, early on, you can request colonists or a small amount of resources. Later on, it's more advanced tech, buildings, cannon, and a lot more resources. Each of the civilizations, though, you see their home city seamlessly. You see in the bottom right, there's my mini map. I'm able to go back to the map anytime I want. And so it adds like a nice aesthetic element that you are a part of this civilization. Light amount of immersion here, and you can see the different buildings. And there is some contrast, like here I'm going to Moscow, of course, so it's in the snow, that sort of thing. But you're able to build your deck, and this adds an extra layer of strategy and customization for this game. And they've added a lot more here in terms of combat, and you're just doing less. You're thinking more about the different paths you can go rather than on the map how you're going to build up your particular colony. Like with Age of Empires 2, the Art of War scenarios make a return, covering the usual RTS concepts like early offense, early defense, booming, to scenarios unique to Age of Empires 3, like the home city shipping and naval battle, as the big ships now are quite a bit different, and they have a population cap in Age of Empires 3. Historical battles also that were added in Age 2 are more unique though in the third game, since they didn't have them before. They just had the main campaigns. A little bit disappointed because you have to play these in order, one after another, whereas in the previous game you could just pick several across the world that you wanted to play. But these are fun in that they function similarly to the second game, focused around a single event in a single time period. Gripe I had with Age of Empires 3, I played a little bit back in the day, were the hotkeys. I liked them a lot better. I know I keep referring to the second game. I liked it better in the second game. Here, though, better. I was able to rebind them, and you can even do conflicting rebinds if one is the same as another, which I like, because I'm not a big fan of what they currently have. It works. First and foremost, the online multiplayer does work. Issues with the past game, Age of Empires 1, I didn't have any problem. Age of Empires 2, nothing showed up. I'm sure they fixed it now. But the main thing is, within a week after the game released, you can jump in online, browse games, and join some if there's some available. A lot are password protected, but if you can join in a random game, just looking for the ones that aren't locked. Also, you can start a game and people will join along with playing with human opponents. You can also mix in AI and change the difficulty type of map, all that stuff. So what I ended up doing, I had a hard time joining. I ended up starting a match. I had one person join and then I filled the rest out with AI and then just put like a higher difficulty. I put it at hard, I believe. I'm not that great really at this game, Age of Empires 2. I'm much more familiar with, but worked fine. I didn't have any lag with that game in particular. There wasn't a ton of action where the screen filled up. I had more of that when I did a single player and then maxed out all the players. So no issues with lag with the game though. It does in fact work even with the updated visuals, so I think it is optimized better overall. The single player game I played, this is in the skirmish mode. This is with 8 players in total. I did a couple of these. One you're seeing here, I'm playing the Russian civilization, and another one I did the British, which you'll be seeing some footage of. How it works is the population cap is at 200. You can't bump it up past that, but you are able to do the different scenarios, like with supremacy, where you can build the wonder, that kind of thing. Like there hasn't been much of a change here. And here's where I had a tiny bit of stutter when I did 200 population cap. And this was later in the game where everyone is built up. We're all pretty closer to the population cap. There would be a short stutter when everything fired at once. I think you saw just a tiny bit right there, or even here as well. Not game breaking though at all. This isn't like a couple seconds. There, you kind of saw it there. It's like a single second, and then it will resume. It doesn't affect gameplay in any way. The difficulty spread is good though. For the AI, I did moderate, and I had an easier time. Hard is like a little bit harder. Like they'll do certain things, not do certain things, like collect the gold around the map. So this was good, both online and offline. Different direction with the story. Rather than being focused around specific historical events, instead you have this fictional family that covers these 3 time periods. This is in the main campaign that runs the breadth of the 1492 to 1871 time frame. So you're going from like Columbus in the first act to the middle period, kind of the 7 Years' War, American Revolution, around that time period, then later up into the Old West time period, the 1871. Problem with the direction of Age of Empires 3's story, though, is it's not as focused or interesting because it's not focused on the real historical events or figures. Instead, it's this fictional family and the successive generations from one to the other. They were thinking that was going to be the interesting point, but the interesting point of the history is the real figures and the focus on what happened, or kind of more so being inspired from that. Like, I didn't find the story making sense. They go over to the New World because of the Fountain of Youth. Like, that was the first act, and then the second act makes a little more sense, but it's just much more disengaging. They kind of throw in the events that, oh, now they're, kind of like the B team of something happening. Like, you run into George Washington, like there's some predictability there, except it's the 7 Years' War, so it's right before to try to keep it fresh. But the cutscenes are done very well in the main campaign, but the amount of content that you get, since there is more energy put into that aspect, I think it comes at the expense of having more scenarios, more missions around specific events that happened that would make it more interesting. It's like you get just a taste of certain things that happened, whereas like with Age of Empires 2, you get a lot more on what happened around a you know, a single war, that sort of thing. There are 2 additional campaigns, though. I did the Blood, Ice, and Steel, which is the main one. The Fire and Shadow and the Asian Dynasties that focus around the new civs that they had, the Native American ones and the Asian ones, the Indian, Japanese, and Chinese. You probably noticed some choppy frames in the cutscenes, but that's just because I had to recalibrate like the power. When I took it out, put it back in, then it was smooth again. Only glitch I noticed, this is kind of a big one, at the end of the second act it goes to the Asian Dynasties one, so I wasn't even able to play the third act, and there's some cutscenes where it just sits there and doesn't go to the next thing, but these will be patched out soon, I'm sure. The remastered portion of the game is great. It looks a lot better. This is the second 3D one after Age of Mythology, and along with that I didn't have optimization issues. I have a gaming laptop, so it's a decent PC, and the only thing that I did have was that slight stutter at specific moments for like less than a second, which didn't affect the gameplay for me when I was playing in the skirmish mode. But the updated visuals are excellent, and what they added with the 2 new civilizations, it's even more so of a difference because of the amount of difference that you have within. It edges a bit closer to a game like StarCraft in that you have to really change your approach and be knowledgeable about the civilization you're playing, not just their unique unit and economic or other perks. This is a buy. There's plenty of content. You have the 3 different campaigns. It looks a lot better from the original game and succeeds in the era that it's depicting. You have the line of troops, they're firing in a volley, you have the heavy cannon, all the things that you would expect. That being said, as an Age of Empires game, it is very combat oriented. So if you traditionally like the building up your town, that kind of thing, not so much. You're spending very little time. Your colonists are decentralized, they don't have gather points. Your transport over to your home city center, you're deciding what to build, where you plop them down is farther away from your base, and just the amount of time you spend on your economy is very little, and it is really streamlined, so you're not messing with it. So as an experience, Age of Empires 2, I believe, is still the best game, but then this one would be second, kind of around Age of Mythology. If you liked this video, please give a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike. Really liked it, consider subscribing. If you are picking it up on Game Pass, where you can also get Age of Empires 1 and 2 Definitive Edition, please check out the link below. And I will see you next time. Não posso mexer!